World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Hey, what's happening? What's Urbanology.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. I hope all is well. It's a little wet, but it could be snow. And for some people, that's a gift, and some people, are quite disappointed. I know a number of young people were thinking about pulling out the sleds and all of that stuff, but nevertheless, it is what it is, as they say. We're moving into the first month of the new year, January. There are a lot of new things that are going on. There are a lot of things that will be happening this year, especially in the area of culture. Harlem Week will be 50 years old. There's an anniversary there, and there's a lot of people, a lot of different types of institutions that 50 years ago became part of this Harlem tourism and hospitality industry. The first Harlem Day was the theme was the beginning of the second Harlem Renaissance. And when we talk about the first Harlem Renaissance, there are notables that we all talk about sometimes during February, Black History Month. But the second Harlem Renaissance will also have its leaders and sheroes and heroes in all of the various different types of art. As relates to beginning to have a different understanding of how we record our history, and it becomes our story rather than his story, with the help of Matt McCoy and Soul City, we can review and talk to those artists who years from now will be those who have been leaders in art and culture during the Second Harlem Renaissance. One of those artists is a young lady that I've had a chance to. Matter of fact, it was during Harlem Week, because she was one of the interesting and creative artists that allowed for her work to be viewed in festivals such as Harlem Week. And she's gone a long way and has done some interesting things, and we'll talk about some of that uh, and some of the things that she will be doing in 2024. So please join me in welcoming Aleathia Brown.
Hello, this is wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well,
And happy New
Aleathia,
Year.
Happy New Year and all of that. Uh, it's it's always good, as I was saying before, to have the opportunity to have these types of sessions and record them, because you will be and are history,
Mm,
and the work that you have done, the things that you have done in Harlem, uh, will again create that type of understanding of the wonderful energy that comes out of this community and what it produces. You're one of those people, but now we have you on camera, so generations can begin to understand and hear it from you, not from somebody else, about
mm,
how you got to where you are and what you're doing and some of the things that you want to share as far as that journey. And
yeah.
in our conversation, that was started at 3 years old as far as being
Mm-hmm.
an artist. So
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about yourself and
Well,
how you got to where you are now.
I say emphatically, I am Harlem. I am an artist. So just as emphatic as I am black and as I am woman, those things are synonymous because they're rooted in how my work is expressed, how my body language is moving. Always, it's just all the elements coming together. So being a visual artist started out, believe it or not, in spite of what you might see on this camera, I was severely shy. So my art was my voice. And it really was how I was able to communicate beyond words. So having to embrace that part of myself and my assignment on this planet as an artist was really profound because I got to use color and image in where the words didn't fit. So this journey has been um, a life experience, and it's been the thing that has given me so many layers and textures myself, even beyond the canvas, because I am a storyteller as well, come from roots of that, sitting under the kitchen table when I was little and they didn't notice me, listening to the family conversations. So could you imagine what my
Yeah, I
ears
did
had to
some of
hear?
that too. I think that comes from
uh,
a South Carolina thing, but
uh-huh,
you had to be
that's my
quiet
roots.
anyway.
Exactly. Those are my roots. You can't This is how you know when you're not making something up. We all are having the same story on certain parts of that, right? And my grandmother and her sisters and my mother and all the siblings, all the conversations colorfully they had, I knew how to be quiet enough to not be seen and just listen.
And
So
that's
yeah.
part of what people see in your work,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
as we experience these things, that becomes part of our energy. That's the frequency that we kind of flow on. And that's why people who
Absolutely.
have that same type of frequency can enjoy what you do, because they can feel
Yes,
it.
yes. Yeah, I'm telling a story and sometimes not such a obvious way. I had a gentleman recently say, because my work just came down out of Emmanuel Church where I was baptized, actually, ironically, on 119th. And one of the chefs
Okay.
that does the food program, that's why I say I am Harlem. There's so many roots and layers to me. Folks are like, what? She did what? And so for me, I keep unfolding the stories, but I show up in the invitation to show my work in the space that my grandmother and her sisters sang on the choir, and my mother went to Sunday school, and I was baptized, and now my work was on the walls there for 3 months, ending the year. Right, December 30th, I ended in
Hmm.
that space, and so it's just interesting how all these layers come together. But one of the chefs was walking by one day when I was talking to some lady about my work, and he said, "You know, your work really takes me on a journey, and every time I look at it, I get something new from it that I didn't see the last time. But the colors soothe me, and when the rest of the world outside is too much, I just sit and just stare at your work, and that's where I shift." And for me, the irony is that's what happens when I'm producing the work. I'm sitting for hours, everything from the blank surface to as I'm transitioning with what it's telling me. And just like food does to you, it starts speaking to you and you do the happy dance. Art does the same thing for me in the process of making it. So there are times when it starts talking back to me, and that's the me sitting for hours in front of it and just letting it speak.
Well,
So art is my words.
it's something that I believe is an energy that an artist, if whether it's in writing or painting or
Hmm.
whatever you're doing, if you are able to tap into that energy of creativity, that spiritual creativity,
Hmm.
and actually tap into it and and let it come into the reality, not only
Mm.
will you feel it, but the people who are viewing and seeing, whether it's a Michael Jordan or whether it's a Aleathia, whatever your craft
It
is,
transmits.
the more you transmit that energy that you get in that zone,
Yes.
the more
Right.
you're able
Others
to
pick it
help
up.
people help people and give them a feeling, an emotional uplifting in a sense.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I liken it to, you ever be on the phone with somebody and you smile, but they could feel it? You
Yeah,
didn't say
you
you were
can heal
smiling, but
people
you
over the
could feel
phone.
it.
You can heal
Yes,
people voice and
because
the
it's
energy
vibration.
vibrations, like the 12, what was it, the monkey test, where they had monkeys on one island and they fed them in a certain way and they trained them to get food in a certain way, and then they
Mm,
went to another island over a period of time, and the monkeys are
mm.
doing the same thing. you
See?
know
That
so
vibrational energy.
it's why birds fly in a certain way. Humans are the
Pattern.
only ones that haven't gone on that frequency, because
Some of
we've
us
been
do.
we,
It's
but
that we've
that's
been
what I'm saying.
indoctrinated. Yeah, some of us have had to unlearn what we've been brainwashed, and the washing of the brain is detrimental to our inner being because we have all of these psychic energies, we have all of
Hmm.
these metaphysical energies that transcend beyond the physical, but the mental part is just so powerful. And when we allow ourselves in a surrender, we
Hmm.
can go so much beyond the typical and the mundane.
That's true. And I wanted to have this type of conversation because when we start to talk about your art, a lot of times, at least for me, maybe it's just personal way that I look at things, but the more I know about the artists and where they're coming from, the more I can see how they have put that into their work, and it allows for me to appreciate the
Mhm.
work because I can really understand that what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling was something that the artist was trying to, you know, whatever that might be. And for different
Say,
people, it may be different
mhm.
things, but it's good to know you, and that's why I wanted people
Yes.
to understand who you were and where you are coming from. Tell us about some of the artwork that you have had um, throughout Harlem, or some of the things that you have done in your
Hmm.
career that I want you to brag about yourself a little bit. I want you to talk about some of the achievements that you have made since you got out of music and art, which was on my block. We have to talk about that a
Uh-huh.
little.
In your backyard, yes.
That's right.
Well, I'll zigzag because in 2017 I was commissioned to do a mural. And so the mural is called I Am Harlem, and it's on the outer walls of Infinity Mennonite Church on 146th Street, between 7th and 8th, or Adam Clayton and Frederick Douglass. The Harlem in me wants to call it what I'm used to calling it. And so there's three walls. So the front face of the church entry has part of the story, and as you go inside the block, the other two walls are on the inner side of the block. So on the principal wall, that's the longest wall of that three wall journey, I call it, I have James Baldwin. James Baldwin was my dude in high school. I love James Baldwin's brain. And so ironically, as I was finishing the work, one of the neighbors that used to watch me painting on that wall in the middle of the night in all hours of the day comes to me and says, James Baldwin lived on 146th Street. I was like, what? How divine is that? But what pivoted me when I was doing the sketches and the preliminary work for it, I didn't even have those images in my early part of the design work. It was me going to see I am the movie in St. Nick Park with Image Nation. I Am Not Your Negro. And
Right,
so
right, right, right.
me watching the film resonated all my years back to music and art and all the things that I did with studying black culture and history and legacy. And I was like, well, how could I not give the community I am from this food back that I have gotten? So most of the walls, 80% of the work I did was on from the research I did at Schomburg Library. And I've been really trying to get them to archive those walls because it is a gift to Harlem, my legacy giving back. Because I have Marcus Garvey, I have the poster from I Am Man. See, I put a lot of messages in that, Dinker symbols and Underground Railroad symbols, because I wanted messages to be ribboning throughout the piece. So that was one of my public works to ode
and
to
and
Harlem.
and
And I
and,
wrote a
and
poem
give
to it as well.
and we're going to go because there's some other things I want you. But for that particular piece, it just some things just came to my mind. Give the exact address
Hmm.
of where
So
that
I'm
those
gonna tell
walls
you the
are.
building number. It's on the exterior of the Mennonite Church. Infinity Mennonite Church is the name of the church, and actually, the pastor residing over that is Al Taylor, who's also our public servant. So this is why I said it's the gift that keeps on giving, and
Senator
I
Al
think in
Taylor, for
terms of
those who
that.
are.
So 2522 Adam Clayton Powell on the corner of 146. So that's the address, 2522 Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. And so
Which
Al
is
Taylor was college buddies to the executive director of the mural company that commissioned me. And when we were
uh,
looking for a wall to put it on that it could stay on, they got into a conversation. And before I had done the first revision sketch for that space, he saw what I wrote and what I was thinking and processing.
right.
Because I write sometimes when I can't see the visuals, sometimes I
Mhm.
write poetry or stories. And that was really some of the catalyst for a lot of my work over the years. No one ever knew because I never shared those things. But when he saw what I wrote, he said I needed to wait and meet the artist whose mind wrote these words, because he gave permission for us to do the mural because of what I wrote before he ever saw the first sketch. So
which
that's
is
part of
which is
my.
basically what I was just saying to you,
I
which
know,
is
that's why I
interesting.
smiled, because I was like, you don't even understand. You said that too. Because that is the other layer of what births the visual images. And so they work in tandem for me. Sometimes I write before I paint or create any visual images.
But the important thing and what is really, I feel so much gratitude to be in a position to have these types of sessions because what you have done and what we will talk about a little bit more because there are a couple of other things, especially around the COVID stuff that you did. But when people, because those walls hopefully will be up for a long period of time when we're not around, and people will want to know how did that happen or who did that and how what's the story behind that. Now we have it. We have
We have the
you
written version as well, and it's to
and
last
all of
beyond
the
me.
things. Yeah, because pretty soon, through technology, we don't we won't read. I was telling you, I haven't picked up a dictionary in a very long time because everything is streaming. It's so
Hmm.
wherever that goes through this vehicle that we're on now, it can one not be destroyed. I mean, it
Right,
can but it's out there.
right.
Certain things. The powers that be can't destroy. So our story, our narrative, won't be whitewashed. It is coming from you, and that's important, because you. But let me not get too far off, because I'm an admirer of you, so sometimes I get carried away. Talk to us a little bit more about some of the things that you feel is important that you were blessed to be able to do.
So as a visual artist and being able to bring forward story and community and heighten people's awareness and their sensitivities, me being able to produce my work or do projects that are, engaging other layers, there's a number of things that I do with my visual image and telling a story. This is part of how I am who I am is because of my mother saying, "You don't have the luxury of just doing art for art's sake." As a black woman, young girl, when I was little, she was like, "You have to do some work with legacy in mind for your heritage, your cultural heritage, because if you
Mhm.
don't, someone else will and take credit for it. So you do a little bit of work for us, and then you can go and do the other stuff you want to do for the sake of." And so it's always been the two worlds, like Tale of Two Cities, Tale of Two Worlds that I live in. I'm a artist and then I'm a black artist. And then just because I'm black doesn't automatically make my art black. And so I had to delineate between the two worlds. So when I'm telling a black story, like my piece called Grooming Grandma, is a little child combing grandma's hair, which is what I used to do with my grandmother. And she told me stories of my mother's childhood while I messed in her hair. And so I want to bring forward that there's history and legacy, and then there's the aesthetic part that's for healing internally, emotionally, and spiritually. So there's different layers. My first time really being able to be stunned and amazed by color was looking at the stained glass windows in the church. I don't know, 2, 3 years
That's
old.
true.
And
That's
so
true.
if you look at my work, that's my
Especially
palette.
when the sun shines through,
Coming
and
through. Exactly. The rays,
right,
the beam, right? It's magical. Imagine a
right.
three-year-old child looking at that. It was like magic act. How does those lines come through some window that's covered? But for me, if you look at most of my work, my palette is those colors of a stained glass window.
I was just getting ready to talk about the other thing that I guess is your brand is the colors and the way that you use colors in all the things that you do. You know, even during the COVID when Nicoa and her group did the painting on the street, and when they,
Mm-hmm. Black
your
Lives
design,
Matter. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Black Lives Matter piece. Uh, the colors are always a way that we can kind of say, "Oh, I know who probably did that," and the way you used them.
Color
I mean, it's not so much the
it,
color
but
as how they come together,
mm-hmm.
which is unique.
Because they're a story. For me, color is not something I use just because it's cute or something, beautiful to look at. For me, I'm using color as a story. So each color has a story, and there's a synesthesia that I have from childhood. I didn't know the formal name of it, but whenever I see color, I see numbers. And
Wow.
as blatantly as I'm sitting here talking to you, I see every color with a number attached to it, and never
Wow.
could understand why I saw that, and no one else could see it.
I got to ask Lord Strayhorn what that's about.
No,
You
it's
know.
there is a scientific, I won't say disorder, biologically there's a scientific order of a small group of people who have a synesthesia. Some hear sounds and colors, or numbers and sounds, or colors and numbers. It's an actual fact. Biologically, there are a small group of us who have that innately, like it's ribboned in our DNA to see it and feel it and exude it. And so I just recently came across this because I'm the geek part of me. My teachers used to say, if you weren't a visual artist, you would have been a scientist, because the curious mind that I have and playing with things like chemicals was always in my wheelhouse, seeing how things interact. And for me, the science of people is seeing how you react to my work, the colors, the textures, the movement. For me, the line in anything that I'm doing is whimsical, like poetry. So my line is poetic, my color is story, my texture is the bold vibration of sound. If you weren't in front of me when I was listening to the music as I was playing it while I'm creating, I want you to feel the energy of the music that was conveyed while I was creating that. So those colors are because a lot of times I'm working listening to music. If not live, then recorded.
Well, I'm going to segue into something else now. You've been involved with the Harlem Arts Alliance for some time, and has kind of tried to lead the way in technology and some of the other things that has happened. But you, in many cases, and Vo will, I'm sure, agree, has been kind of like the face of the Harlem Arts Alliance's new pivot into
Mm,
doing certain things. And we had a conversation about that as far as introducing technology to artists and things
mm,
like that. And recently, the Harlem Arts Alliance, in con- conjunction with McDonald's, had a contest that
mhm,
you were one of the winners, and for those who were on 42nd Street last week, you saw, a wonderful, and we're going to show something that will allow for you to actually see that wonderful piece that was on Times Square. But before we do, what was your motivation for creating, I guess that Mr. McDonald, the color man?
So I'm glad you asked that, because I actually have a painting that I did some years ago when I had my studio in Chishama Studios in the Mink building. And the question they asked us when they gave us these mural sized canvases is to pick some part of your personality that resonates. And for me, again, we just talked about those colors of the stained glass window. This
Mm-hmm.
piece that I have called Color and Time is an 8 foot by 5 foot canvas painting that I did. It was whimsical and playful with the colors of the primary colors predominantly. And I wanted it to be something fun that's engaging for hours to come. So I took the elements of that and reimagined it into this character. And so you'll see even in the video, I took the paint that I have a print of that painting in a smaller canvas that I brought out to Times Square, and I had it in the street with me. So I was showing that in the video so you can see the comparison between where I took the elements of that painting and imagined it into the character called Color Man. So
But,
yeah, it
but
was on my
what was when you were putting that together, based on what you were saying about, it may be something that you're listening to, there may be something that you're thinking about.
hmm
When you put that image together, I know you probably didn't do it all in one time, but what was some of the things that allow for you to put into that image as far as your feelings, your thoughts at that time?
So sometimes there are things that are obvious and not so obvious. I'm thinking about one of my biggest affinities with McDonald's is the French fries. So the arms are the fries, and the shape was the nugget, and I had the base of those two things going on. But then there's the Apollo Theater, and there's the projects. I grew up in East Harlem and East River houses, so the buildings off to the side. So elements of that whole piece had so many different layers of I put the Harlem Arts a message on the marquee on the outside of it. So all of the elements to it. In fact, the hat that I drew on to the figure was a paperboy hat from the 1930s walking down Harlem. I took essences from my cultural heritage and said, well, I don't want to liken this to just black people, but all colors of people are excited when they go into the happy meal phase to eat something that they wanted to make fun and whimsical. So I took elements from one part of my brain and the other part and put them together. I still wanted it to look culturally like a Harlem energy, which is bold and with attitude, but then which is whimsical and colorful. So that those are the elements I looked at, and I had 24 hours to do it in. So there you
You
have
had
it.
what?
24 hours to do it. And we literally were on a Zoom, and I took out my supplies when the Zoom ended and didn't stop until 20 minutes before the deadline to submit it. Mhm. So yeah.
So I wanted you to do that because when we were talking not long ago, I indicated that when you see something of some art, if you know the person or what they were thinking about and what they did in order to understand that, the art has a different type of
Mhm.
meaning to you, which I'm sure the people will be able to see, and thousands of people were able to see it because it was on a billboard on Times Square, one of the busiest networks in New York City. But we should first look at the 1 minute piece that also showed you, as I've always seen you, logging a whole lot of stuff around.
That was
But
the painting. Listen, as the mother of my art, I have to carry her on my back. And so this is what I
that's what
do
you
so
do.
people can understand and appreciate the length I go to.
So let's take a look at the short video about this award-winning art piece that was in Times Square last week. Matt, can you run that? That was an interesting experience, but you did it in 24 hours. Huh?
Yeah, I literally was getting the load up at 2:20 and the deadline was 3 p.m. As I'm loading it up, I'm getting a call from Katrina. Are you still gonna submit this? Are you gonna get it in on time? And the pressure is on because I was like, I'm not sure how this is loading up. So yeah, I literally had wet paint on my hands while I was hitting the keys doing that. And I started after we got off that Zoom that morning before.
And again, ending with you, which is what I always remember, because as I had mentioned and we had talked about earlier, you were one of the first artists that I can think of that really took advantage of street festivals like Harlem Week, and actually many of the different festivals that came after Harlem Week. Harlem Week was, the beginning, and it always was interesting, especially when people were packing up to see you do. I remember some of the security people say, "We got to help with this," because you was just telling me you didn't have a car, and you was taking all of this stuff all over the place, Brooklyn and
Mhm.
Queens.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's a love
That's
that
the
cannot be denied.
yeah. It's funny because Catherine, Miss Kitty Jules, did a video
Right.
documentary short on me with my journey called The Untitled Journey. And
Mhm.
she was following me throughout my day. And at one of the points, it just happened the day she decided to film me, I had to bring a piece of artwork. In fact, a print of that same piece to a client framed and it was a work on paper. So now I have this frame with glass and I'm going down train steps and up and down and she's following me with the camera and she was like, at one point I felt bad, like I should stop, put the camera down and help you down the train steps because you can see me struggling with this heavy thing. And I literally had to take it to two workshops before going to Brooklyn, in Harlem, then to Brooklyn. So I did a zigzag pattern that day and she's like, woof, I don't know how you do it. I was like, I don't either. So
Well,
is you do
it's
it.
one of those, when you have a certain type of energy and calling, you can do things that many people feel that is impossible to do, because it's all in the mind, it's all in the frequency, and we
Yes.
make a lot more accomplishments in our lives if we just believed that we could, and
Mhm. Mhm.
follow that inner voice.
Exactly.
So what's
Exactly.
happening in 2024 for you? What you've made a lot of, you've created a high benchmark, you know. So what how do you go a little higher in 2024 in
So
your mind?
there's there's a couple of things. So one, I was just having a phone conversation with the people from Repertory Harlem. They are the food program I was mentioning before at Emmanuel Church where I was baptized. So
Mhm.
they're asking me on the 16th of January to come and do some live art during one of their dinner programs. So I'll do that with my playlist of
And
music.
when you say live art, you're saying what, so that
I
people can be
paint
clear?
in the moment, and on a stage in front of an audience, in whatever is happening in the moment is what translates onto the canvas or the paper. Sometimes just translating what the sound and the texture of the room is, or whatever sounds I'm hearing in the room beyond me and the
Mhm.
music, and it becomes my live art, which is very different than the work I do in studio because I'm not in the moment of being able to just slow down and carry the details into the piece. I just have to kind of move through the space and whatever it's telling me to do with the
Mhm.
sound I'm hearing. And so
So
it's musically inspired.
it's just like some of I remember talking about South Carolina.
Mm.
We would go to church. The church was all day, but sometimes the pastor would get hit by a spirit. And I heard
Mhm.
him almost say, "Oh
Mhm.
well, we're gonna be here for a minute now. Pastor got
Oh,
to."
you already know. Embrace yourself because this is a good extra right here. Mhm.
And so I can understand how that comes to you. You get that feeling. You just you
Mhm.
know it comes through you. It's not you. You're just a
It's
vehicle.
right, you surrender. It's really just a total surrender and having to not worry about is it pretty, is it detailed, what someone will like or don't like. It's just being in the moment, fully present, and allowing yourself to be the vehicle through that music, letting the brush dance with the sound.
And have you done this? And I think I know the answer, but I would. Have you done this with music? Different types of music,
Oh yeah, so I started
and
doing this from the right after 9/11. That November after 9/11 is when I started doing it, and I had another music and art friend of mine, Richard Cole, who I just recently met his daughter in the Harlem Fine Arts show last year. This is crazy how the world works, right? So Cisco and I and Bliss, the poet, who actually Bliss did that video. So the three of us would go on the road and do these live art presentations. Bliss would do a spoken word, Cisco would play the saxophone or the piano, and I would paint to whatever they were doing. So I would say sometimes when we would just do a run through at a rehearsal, play me a green or an orange, not a note. And he would just go in because he was also a painter as well. And that music and art vibe was already there with us anyway. So
mm,
it really started from then because I wanted people to see the process. So it's not about me finishing the work on the stage. Sometimes I might be working on 5 different pieces at the same time and
hmm
going back and forth when the music changes tempo or the poem changes. And so for me, and I just did something with the bomb shelter at Lucille's last
hmm
month.
hmm
So I may take it back to my studio and embellish little details of what I remembered in that moment happening.
hmm
And half of the pieces that I had at Emmanuel were works of live art. I did some live art at Harlem Eat Up Festival 2017 while they had
hmm
live music across the courtyard for me. And
And
I
I
have
forgot about that. That's true.
Mhm.
I forgot about that. I was there.
Yeah, so it happens in different spaces, in different ways, but each time is a different thing. When I used to show my work at Creole in East Harlem, for 3 years I was there, 3.5 years. Every time I would get a chance to do some live art on those sets when they had live music, it's whoever the band was that I responded to.
hmm
So,
and I do know when you're talking about uh, the trio with the spoken word and the instrument and the art. Um, I was thinking. I know that um, Matt and a number of other people are talking about bringing the spoken word back, and
mhm.
it would be interesting in different venues to have part of that type of a show with the
Mhm.
live art, the spoken word, and someone playing the horn. That,
Yeah, it gives people an opportunity to also slow down from the pace we're on. Everybody's
Mhm,
consumed with their devices and moving at a pace that's beyond human. The arts will slow you down and kind of keep you connected to those different inner parts of you that
mhm,
really count for replenishing and rejuvenating and relaxing. So we need the art for our mind to really replenish. And so we can't always be moving like this.
Do you have any art exhibits or shows coming up in 2024 that you might be
So
looking at?
there's an annual show I do every year in the Juneteenth festival in Montclair at the Montclair Museum with an organization called Empower the Village.
Hmm
And I'm actually going to be doing some vending at the college in Montclair, Bloomfield. I did last year, so I just signed up to do my art novelties and so quiet as it's kept when we get off of this call, I'm going right into my computer because I had my business coach giving me, some pointers on how to prepare myself for a pitch competition and that's through Empower the Village. They're doing that at the Bloomfield College in February. So if it goes well, I'll be doing a pitch with my Alethia's original artworks and the vending. So so sometimes I'm exhibiting my fine art framed work, and that's the Juneteenth thing that I do every year. And then I'm doing the vending things in terms of art exhibitions, because I sometimes try to slow myself down so that I can have time to work on some new bodies of work and be preparing myself for the season ahead. So for this second, that doesn't mean tomorrow or the end of this month something won't change, because that's how my life is. Um, I haven't got a formal exhibition, but that's okay because I need to rejuvenate myself, and I have a couple of other projects. One of my other projects I want to put into the universe since you're listening
Hmm.
is I sat in the space, the atrium, back in June for the Harlem Arts meeting that I presented, and that atrium started speaking to me. I want to do a four-part conversation. My Unveiled Unlocked hat is about emotional wellness and bringing the needle forward on difficult conversations colorfully. So I want to have a four-part conversation in that atrium.
Where
Hopefully,
is the atrium again?
it's on 62nd Street. And there's two entrances, Broadway, and behind that we're facing Lincoln Center. So I
Mhm.
want to do a four-part conversation in there and then end it with a dance frenzy with DJ Masai, because there's something soulful about the journey of movement to music.
Mm.
So that dance energy is the release for all of the conversations that are difficult and engaging. And I have some poets that I want to have. The poets will be speaking in transition of the conversations changing direction, and then we go into that. So I've been doing these conversations for a long time, and they're so powerful what they bring forward, and I really curate them so that not only do the panel of people that I invite to speak about their life journey, but the people sitting eavesdropping want to engage in conversation too. Something beautifully colorful about conversation with us. For me, that's art as well. So for more than 30 years, I've been doing conversations in settings where restaurants and at home or around food. And so that's one of the things I really would like to see happen in March for Women's History Month.
Well, Alethea, as I started the show, I was talking about the Second Harlem Renaissance and our ability to record and have conversations with those people who are making that happen. So as history begins to tell its story of where we are now in the future, there will be a way for people to hear from your mouth,
Hmm.
you know, the things that I'm sure will still be talked about 30, 40, 50 years from now. And it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit down and let you talk a little bit about yourself. You know, sometimes we don't talk about ourselves as much as we should. We think
Hmm.
we know that you love yourself because you can't love anybody else. You couldn't love your work if you don't have a certain love for yourself. But I'm glad to allow for you to be able to let people know who you are. And if anyone would like to commission you for any type of work, how would they do that?
Well, the first easiest way is you can Google Aleathia Brown because all of my stuff comes up. I'm searchable, but I have Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on all of the social platforms. Alethia's Original Artworks is my company name, and that's the name I use on my Instagram and my um, Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, so Aleathia Brown, you'll find me there. So my website is alethiasart.us. So it's Aleathia, Alethea with an S. So you can find me on any platform or just Google me and you'll see whatever I've done and I'm doing because I post everything at 4 o'clock in the morning every day.
Yes, I know. I sent some 4 o'clock in the morning stuff to you, and I was surprised to get
And I answered right then, right? See,
it.
this is the insomniacs of
Yeah,
the
well,
universe.
when things hit you, I do a lot of my writing around that time. Sometimes I I'm sleeping and something tells me to get up and write something because,
But that's not by coincidence.
of course, no such thing as coincidence.
Most problems are solved between 3 and 5 a.m.
Yeah,
Scientists, mathematicians, artists, most problems are solved between those hours. You know why? Because most souls are at rest so that you don't have the interference, so you can have more clarity.
yeah. There's the energy
It's
network
more
is,
still.
is that's interesting. Well,
Mhm.
listen, I again appreciate having some time to talk with you.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me. This is a blessing.
Aleathia Brown. There are so many ways that one might be able to appreciate your art and your craft, and hopefully, some people who have not had that opportunity will take the time now to look for you on Facebook or Instagram or any of those things. Matter of fact, I know we had the conversation before. You were one of the first of the whole art community to begin to understand the value of using information technology as a way to uh, increase your art concept of being a professional business person.
Mhm.
So that has hindered a lot of people, not
Yes.
especially during COVID.
Mhm. Yeah,
All of
you
those
had to
other
pivot.
things. Yeah, how you're able to get your message out, what you do, and the like. But I think that after COVID, a lot of the people in the Harlem Martial Alliance began to understand a little bit better what you were trying to say, because.
Now Eureka, that's what she meant. Mhm.
But
But things
again,
take time to process, I guess, too.
all things happen when they're supposed to. And again, thank you for giving us all of that you have given visually. And we
Thank you
look
for
forward
having me.
for continuing.
I
Alicia
wanna
Brown, Happy
I
New
wanna
Year.
say
Looking forward
happy
to,
New Year.
to seeing some of the creativity continue in 2024.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. To be
Okay.
continued. Love it. Happy
Love
New
it,
Year
girl.
to you as well. Thank you, Matt, for being on the behind scenes, and thank you all for listening in.
And congratulations, the Times Square. That was an interesting way to
Entry
begin
into
the
the
new
new
year.
year. I
I
thought so too. Timing is everything. It's a blessing that keeps on giving in so many different ways.
mean, how many people saw you, and that was a wonderful opportunity for Harlem Arts Alliance, for you, for all of that stuff. So
Yes, the gift that keeps on
it's a
giving.
good way to start, right?
Yes, right? It can only go up from there, right?
Okay, you can make the benchmark high, but we gotta, you know, keep on keeping on. Take
That's
care,
how.
my
Thank
friend.
you.
We'll be
All
seeing
right.
you soon.
All right. To be
And that
continued.
pretty much brings us to the end of our show. We're in almost out of January, then we're going into February. One of the things that I'm going to do as much as I can is to focus on uh, the last 50 years of this whole Harlem movement. In 1974, the beginning of the first Harlem Day, there was a theme, the beginning of the second Harlem Renaissance. Now we're in the 50th year, and there are things that are starting to take place that uh, are really uh, a manifestation of the Percy Suttons and the people who saw this many, many years ago, way before I did. But again, with the blessings of the Soul City team and WACR and Harlem News and many of the other vehicles, we can start to record, start to create our own narrative. And for a lot of things that we will be doing on my end and through Urbanology leading up to the 50th anniversary, is to start highlighting some of those people who will soon in history be looked upon as those leaders in the Second Harlem Renaissance. And I'm just hopeful that you'll be able to stay with us. Thank you, Matt McCoy, and the rest of the team to provide that opportunity because there's a celebration of Harlem that's coming, and we want to make sure that everybody's a part of it. Take care, and Happy New Year.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Hey, what's happening? Yo, what's up? Urbanology. Urbanology.